But my beats, they are hard.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the BCSN Sports Wrap. I'm Brian Fulford, and that's A.D. Drew. And A.D., what's good, my man? How you doing?
Somber today, my brother.
Yeah.
So it's the 1 year anniversary as of this recording of the late, great number 8, Kobe Bryant. It's a fatal passing along with his daughter Gigi and 7 others.
Yeah, 8, 24, whichever number you want to give him.
Well, great and 8 rhyme. That's why I went with 8.
There you go. You know what's interesting, and thank you for anyone watching. Thanks for joining us on the BCSN Sports Wrap. And yes, we're actually recording this on the anniversary, I guess that's the right way of saying it, of the passing of Kobe Bryant. And we could always go with the "where were you" question, but I think that moment, when I look back on the past year, that really was a moment in sports for 2020 that just began a long string of WTFs, WTH. Man, oh my God. I mean, just a lot of somber and sad things. I mean,
if that would have been the worst thing that happened to us in 2020, everything would have been fine.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that any better. I mean, if that was it, as sad as that was, if that was it, yeah. But I mean, just think about all the things that over the past year. I mean, obviously, COVID affected so much of our lives. Social justice movement came into play.
No one knew who George Floyd was on this day last year.
Thank you. No one knew who George Floyd was. We didn't.
No one knew who Aubrey Taylor was on this day.
Right. Ahmad. I can't think of his last name. Ahmad. I can't think of Ahmad's last name. I should know it. I feel like I should know it. Shame on me. But we many things that went on in the past year.
Wasn't Cassandra Bland last year also? Or was that prior to? I mean, it's been so. I hate to say it. It's been so many. I can't tell you when it happened to which person in what year now.
Yeah, and sadly, those are people who they didn't go out to. I'm sure if you in heaven, they're not sitting around. No one's probably thinking, did you ever think your name would be synonymous with a movement? I'm sure none of those individuals were living their life, living their best life, wanting to be immortalized. I don't know if that's the right word.
A martyr.
A martyr. Martyr's kind of strong. I don't know.
But everybody wants their 15 minutes of fame. But no one.
I don't think everybody wants their 15. I don't think so.
A lot of people want their 15 minutes of fame. I give you that. But no one wants to walk. No one walks out the house and say, "Hey, I'm gonna let the police beat my tail and kill me so that I can become famous."
Yeah, I'm sure no one wants that. But I'm talking about how you remember. There's so much that's in a name. How you leave a legacy, and I think in our own personal professions as coaches, we strive to leave a legacy on at least if we can get through to one of our players during our time as coaches. I think that's why we do it, sort of. You know, that's one of the many reasons we do it, and in the hopes that we can leave a legacy that we've impacted the lives of other people. But none of those people woke up that day or even ran through their day or evening with that thought in mind of wanting to be remembered in this way by millions, not just their family, but millions, you know? And so, like you said, when you say their name, it brings to consciousness certain things, you know? Now, Kobe Bryant, he say his name and he did
get an opportunity to leave his legacy.
Yes, but that's what he went into. He went into that profession, and that was his job. He chose to do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, all that said,
but he died doing one of the basic things that we as parents like to do. He was going to support his child. Now, he supported his child by creating the Mamba Academy and coaching his daughter in basketball. But when you get down to the grassroots of it, he was doing what so many mothers and fathers do on a daily basis. He was going to support his child in whatever quest it was. This just happened to be his profession in basketball that he would support his child in. And he took a different means of transportation than you and I would take to a game. But that was his mode of transportation. There's no different than you hopping in your car and riding down I-4 to a game. No different than me hopping in my car riding up I-75 to a game.
Sure. Right. And I think what also is sort of sad about this 1 year anniversary, I don't know if we've had a chance to really grieve or appreciate, memorialize, because we had so many other things going on. So many life things were happening around, and even just within the basketball world. Okay, let me take it there to just the basketball world. The Los Angeles Lakers won the NBA, but because it wasn't really, they couldn't really celebrate it with their fans. They couldn't do the parade. They're not even unveiling a banner until fans are in the stadium for this upcoming year, if it ever happens,
if at all.
Year. Right, whenever it happens, they'll unveil the banner. But you know what I'm saying? It's like it still is that cloud, I think, that sort of hangs over 2020.
Now, Brian, I'm gonna contrast you just a little bit. Kobe's death was actually one of the last things of normalcy, if that's even a word.
Normality, I think, is the right
normality. Word. Normal circumstances that occurred. Kobe was probably the last major celebrity to actually get memorialized before the world shut down. Because his death happened in January. By March, everything was shut down. Right. So he was probably the last person, the last sense of normal living that we had. Although it was a tragic event, it played out like any other celebrity would have had. You had your moments, you had your memorials, you had your celebrations of life. You know, the Lakers did their thing, the NBA did its thing. You remember the 8-second violation and the 24-second violation. You know, people had an opportunity.
They even had an all-star game that they could
where everybody wore the 2 and the 8 jerseys and all that stuff. So he actually had the opportunity to get memorialized properly. People had time to show the number 8 on his on his shoes, and people changed jerseys for a day to honor Kobe. All kinds of stuff.
Good point.
Anybody who passed after March 11th did not get that opportunity. And think about how many great people we lost during this time, such as a John Lewis.
Yeah.
Or people along those lines who did not get the opportunity. They got memorialized on Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how many people knew what Zoom was? There were a
Yeah,
few.
if I could have invested in stock in Zoom back a year ago.
We played with Zoom. We played around with Zoom, but it was not our main platform.
Right. I wish I could have bet stock on Zoom 1 year ago today. I'd be a semi-rich man, maybe, you know?
Yeah, you know.
Well, so we move forward, and of course, for all of the people affected, of course, more importantly, the families of of Kobe, of the Bryants, and the 7 other families. We keep them in our thoughts and prayers. I do want to make mention. Well, actually, I heard today of a good podcast. I wish I could remember the name, so I probably shouldn't even mention it. But it was a podcast that was recommended to because they were able to get some interviews or even play some recollections from various people about Kobe. So it's just one of those things where if you want to take a day or two to continue on in the memorialization of Kobe Bryant, then you can do that. So here we are, BCSN Sports Wrap, and want to remind you to follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at MyBCSN1. Make sure to check out our website, mybcsn.net. That's where you can follow all of your HBCUs, your school, no matter what division. We've got some great links to all of their Twitter feeds, so you can stay abreast of everything that's happening with your school. We've even got our own fresh articles and blogs. I want to encourage you to go check out the recent story that Dr. Kenyatta Cavill and I did called Dynasty Makers. It's just an idea that came up after Nick Saban and Alabama won their 6th national championship in college football in the 13 years. And it is one of those things I talked about a couple of podcasts back, the idea. And so it's interesting to work with Doc and go through some of the dynasties in HBCU, from HBCU coaches that were on par. And the 3 main ones that we spotlight were Eddie Robinson from 71 to 83, Jake Gaither from 50 to 62, and then Billy Nix from Prairie View A&M from 52 to 64. And then we I mentioned some other people, and 2 criteria. Anybody who reads this, and again, you can go to mybcsn.net. You go to the news section and then go to From the Minds of the BCSN is where that article, you can find it on our site. I think of a dynasty as at least a decade. And I also tried to look at comparable wins and championships, Black College National Championships, conference championships. And I think one of the things I found, Drew, in a lot of these men that we pointed out, none of them had a season in that decade or really a 12, 13-year period where they had a losing season. I mean, not every year did they win the Black College National Championship or their conference, but they never had a sub 500 season. Like nobody had a 4-7, 3-8 kind of season stuck in the midst of this run. So I know a lot of people who hopefully read this. I've already started seeing people say, hey, you forgot about like Bill Hayes, or you forgot about Willie Jeffries and other great coaches, Hall of Fame coaches, no doubt. But this was sort of, it grew from the idea of finding a period when you were just at your best.
The best of the best.
Best of the best for a decade.
Extended period of time, yeah.
Yeah, where your teams didn't have a sub 500 season. So it was real fun to kind of go through that deep dive in college football. And so hopefully you'll go check that out and you'll share it with some people, and maybe it'll become one of those historical things that we can talk about in depth. And the whole focus of doing that was just to say, hey, look, you can't compare eras per se, but the numbers don't lie. The win percentages and the championships will always stand. So everybody is chasing Nick Saban today, but Nick Saban is chasing what those HBCU legends did. And I even make a point of mentioning, Woody Hayes and Bear Bryant are two men that most mainstream media outlets talk about, because of course they're not going to talk about HBCUs, but we got to understand how this country was so divided that the same players that Nick Saban has today, if this were 1955, all those guys would be playing at HBCU somewhere.
They be at Grambling, A&M, Prairie View, Southern,
yes. So
FAMU. Yeah.
Think about so for younger people, when you think about that. Just imagine if we were, even in 2020, God help us, if we were in segregation, Jim Crow era, and black men could not play at an Alabama or a Clemson, they were going to an HBCU, South Carolina State instead of Clemson, Alabama State, Alabama A&M instead of Bama and Tuscaloosa or Auburn, FAMU instead of Florida or Florida State. That's what it was like. So
right. Bethune-Cookman and stuff like that.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Just my 2 cents.
Sure.
And I'm glad you brought about the original dynasty, as defined in the article, Cleve Abbott. Of Tuskegee, and what I like to call the forgotten dynasty, that being Billy Joe, with the run that he did at Central State. And what I did not know until I read you guys' article, yes, I was aware of the Billy Joe run. I did not realize that he did it at 3 different levels. I had forgotten that Central State had went from Division II to NAIA. They're at Division II again now, but during that time they dropped to NAIA, and then he duplicated that success once again at Florida A&M University.
Yeah, I was looking for it, and I tried to do as much research on it as I could, but I'm curious to see if anyone else did that, because like you said, he had a winning record, or not a winning record, but he won playoff games at Division II, even went to the championship.
One national championship is the national championships for NAIA though, correct?
Right, but he went to the championship game in Division II.
Right.
And then a few years later,
he won championships in the NAIA.
He actually went to the championship game 3 consecutive years. Won, lost, and then won.
Right.
So I mean, and then think about we're talking even back then in the 80s, late 80s. The separation of the fact that you had a bunch of HBCUs in the Division I level, 1AA, and you had HBCUs at the Division II level. There was always a separation by a lot of the polls and a lot of the media people when it came to claiming a black national champion, because unless the teams played each other, it was hard to compare. And they do similar to what we do now, large school, small school, right?
But he won a consensus. At the NAIA level, he was the consensus number 1, if I remember. Three
of those seasons, he won 5 consecutive. That Central State won 5 consecutive, and I think 6 out of 7 Black College National Championship crowns. In 3 of those seasons, Drew, undisputed Black College National champ, all levels. There was no debate in any of the news media outlets, whoever was claiming or awarding champions. It was Central State or bust. That was it. So yeah, that was one of the things that was really impressive to go back and look at. And so I was glad I had a thought to include, I mentioned Cleveland, Abbott, Tuskegee, Edward P. Hurt. Now that was a name at Morgan that I didn't know.
I didn't know about that until I saw you guys' research.
That's all credit to Dr. Cavill, the dean right there. That was
That's why they called him the dean.
He dropped that nugget, and then when you look, I mean, the man had 2 consecutive decades of runs at Morgan State. I mean, gosh, dog, they were really good. Who else did we have? We had Ace Mumford, Southern. You had Big John Merritt, who his best years were at Tennessee State. I mean, obviously he knows that he went from Jackson State to Tennessee State, but the best years were at Tennessee State. Henry Keene is a name that kind of came right after Cleveland Abbott, where he went from Kentucky State to Tennessee A&I, which became Tennessee State. And you know what's interesting? We talk about, it's funny how, you know, COVID has kind of taken the 2020 season away. You know what happened in 1943 that took a lot of sports away?
World War II.
Yeah. So there's this pause in a lot of coaches' record where, hey, the 1943 season didn't happen because of World War II. Or in Henry Keene's, he actually went from Kentucky State to Tennessee State following the war. And then there was Pete Richardson, who that in our era, think about that. Southern, Pete Richardson, what he did at Southern, where pretty much Southern was the team of the 90s. It's hard to argue that they weren't the team of the 90s with what they did. And then, of course, there was Billy Joe. So I think that was all the other HBCU dynasty makers, I think, that I mentioned in that article. But yeah, it was fun to put together. I love historical opportunities like that and have a true appreciation for it. So maybe, I don't know, maybe we can do more things off of that because I never really got a chance to go deep and see how many of those guys went and played professional football. I mean, it's sort of documented with Eddie Robinson, but some of those Gaither and some of those other names, it was too hard to find the documentation on how many guys, or at least it would have taken me a little bit longer than I had for this particular piece. All right. So yeah, that's mybcsn.net. Hopefully go to the news section and then go to From the Minds of the BCSN, and that's where you'll see that article.
And do one other thing while you're on that website. Click on the support button and support us, because you know this work is not charity work. You know, we love to entertain our people, but it takes money to pay for the website and keep the bills going around the Black College Sports Network. So please hit the support button and I sound like the basketball coach. It could be jiggle change, or it could be
cup of coffee, Drew. Cup of coffee. Whatever this cup of coffee would run you at the store, go ahead and drop us a cup of coffee and we'll say thank you. That it all adds up, right?
Significant change or enough change to be significant.
Well said. All right, Drew, we've got basketball players of the week and a new ranking. We told you we were going to have new rankings every week, and we have that as well as new players of the week for men and women. So what are we starting with, Drew? We're going to start with the rankings or the players of the week? Let's start with the rankings. Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. Go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports Network. They can follow their dreams.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavill of Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed. All right, let's start with the rankings. Let's start with the ladies first. Always ladies first around here. So, Drew, you're going to give us the large school top 5.
Large school top 5 for all games played through January 24th, 2001. Starting on the women's side. Do you want to start with the honorable mentions?
No. Let's just do top 5. Let's do top 5. Unless there was somebody that was like,
well, because they dropped out.
Yeah. Unless there's somebody who dropped out.
Okay. Honorable mention goes to Alabama A&M University. We know the starts and the stops and the SWAC. They're at 4-2, but they were in the quote unquote receiving votes, even though we don't vote in this. They were in the next 5.
Right. If this were a top 10, they'd be like
they would be in the poll. They would be like number 6.
Okay.
But coming in at number 5 is Alabama State.
Unbeaten
Alabama State. Well, unfortunately, at the time of this recording, they suffered their first loss the night before we recorded this. But
that's right. Yeah, they lost on Monday night. Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. Yeah.
At the time of the polling, they were undefeated at 4-0.
Right. Good point.
Coming in at number 4. Yes. This message is directly for Charles Bishop, so you can stop sending me the text
and the tweets. About this?
Jackson State has made the poll.
4 wins in a row. Four wins in a row.
6-5 at the number 4 spot.
5-1 in conference as of this recording.
Correct. But that's it for the SWAC.
All right.
Everybody else comes out to be at.
Okay. Real competitive group over there.
And we've got a shakeup.
What?
In these top 3.
Okay.
Coming in at number 3 are the Morgan State Bears with a 6-2 record. Our new number 2 team are the Bison of Howard University. And what hurt Howard is, and the same thing that hurt Morgan State, they did not play this week during this polling period.
Okay.
And the team that did play and won every game that they played this week would be the North Carolina A&T Aggies. The Lady Aggies coming in with a 7-1 record, just barely edging Howard in the rankings.
I've got to mention that A&T win. It was on Sunday, beating Delaware State 86-59. So it was I'm trying to recall how close of a game it was at the end of the third quarter. Well, let me just say this. To start the fourth quarter, I don't think I had ever seen a team go on the kind of run that North Carolina A&T did to start that game. A&T went on, and I'm trying to pull it up because I was actually live tweeting this as it was happening. A&T went on what would turn out to be, when I first caught wind of it, when I looked at the scores, it started as a 14-0 run, which then turned into a 19-0 run, and actually a 21-0 run for North Carolina A&T before Delaware State scored their first points of the game with 3:55 to play in the fourth quarter. That was off a pair of free throws. They didn't hit their first field goal, Delaware State, until about the 3:05 mark. The final score ended up being like 86-59. So the Aggies that was an awesome fourth quarter and performance. And a couple of interesting notes that this came from North Carolina A&T's sports information department. The Lady Aggies, have one of the youngest teams in the country. Their average age is 19.5 years old, which ties them for the 6th youngest team in the country with UNLV.
Wow.
Yeah, the only teams that are younger than A&T, and I don't know what their records are. I may have to go back and do for next week to figure out what these schools' records are. The only teams that are younger than North Carolina A&T are Oral Roberts, LaSalle, Incarnate Word, and Montana State. 10 players on the A&T team are 19 years or younger, and the Aggies have 7 true freshmen, which is tied for 4th most in the country. So, go figure. They've won 7 games in a row. I think they lost their first game of the year. They won 7 in a row, and they're just they're playing some really good ball right now. And
can you give me those teams again, Brian?
Okay, so the teams that they are, currently they're tied with UNLV. Okay, for the 6th youngest, but in front of them.
Wait a minute, let me see what Nevada, Las Vegas is.
Oh, you're doing this live, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
UNLV. This
and
is
of course,
great radio. If this were radio, they would say this is great radio right now. But it's a podcast, so if you want to speed through this, just hit the
UNLV 6-6.
All right, Oral Roberts.
Oral Roberts 9-7.
LaSalle
is going to be 7-8.
Incarnate Word or Incarnate Word. 2 words.
I know. Incarnate Word 6-6.
And Montana State.
9-3.
So yeah, really, other than not, maybe Montana State is the only one who has a record comparable to what A&T has, huh?
Yes.
That's awesome. So yeah, that's how that pretty much went for the women. And yeah, I can't wait for, I don't know, I don't have the schedule pulled up, but I can't wait to see. And I don't think they've played Howard or Morgan. Somebody's already played somebody. That's what's bugging me right now.
Howard and Morgan will play 4 times this year. They've already played twice.
Okay.
Because of FAMU and Bethune dropping out, A&T basically plays South Carolina State at Central as far as conference games. That's it.
Okay.
Yes. Howard, Delaware, Coppin, and Morgan are in a pod together. They will all play each other 4 times.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, they have not played. Actually, and according to their schedule, they won't play Howard and won't play Morgan. So until you get to the MEAC tournament, I mean, really, their toughest competition will be North Carolina Central, who has been off the last 2 weeks, probably due to COVID-related issues, and they actually played this past weekend. And we'll talk about North Carolina Central's women in just a moment. All right, so let's move over to the small school rankings.
Small school women.
Women, yeah.
Okay. Still no Division IIs in our small schools women's ranking as of yet. But we do have some Division IIs on the rise.
Correct.
That with another good week or two, we'll be cracking into the poll.
You know what I'm interested to see if they jump into the poll and how they do. That's your Tuskegee Golden Tigers, who they're off
to a 2-0 start, and they are on the outside looking in, but their schedule is so sporadic.
Yes.
And with other teams also playing more games in Tuskegee, it's going to be hard for them to get enough games up under them to be able to crack the poll.
And we've got I've got to go watch the film on West Virginia State. Have you seen have you paid attention to the numbers?
They scored 103 consecutive games.
They're the number 2 scoring offense in Division II basketball, women's basketball. I mean, they're averaging like 90 something a game. Yes. But here's what's funny. You know who number 1 is? A school in their very conference called Greenville. So it's like
they don't play defense, or they like the Big 12 of basketball.
I'm telling you, I mean, when you watch some of the games that we've watched, I'm talking Drew, and we've called some of the games too, where you see just a sluggish point production. I'm like, what is happening here? What's happening over in the MEC? Because the fact that you have 2 schools that are the top 2 scoring offenses in the country, I gotta take a look at some of these games over there, man.
As a matter of fact, I think the day where they scored 121, I believe they scored 121 in the game or 119, whatever day it was, I was doing play-by-play on the game, and the 2 teams combined did not get to what West Virginia State scored by themselves.
Right.
So
I just want to go. I want to go. I've got to. Somebody from West Virginia State. We gotta call a game, or I just want to put eyes on a game just to see what's going on over there. I mean, the pacing.
And we've got to work on the interview for them also.
Yeah, man, because the pacing going on over there at West Virginia State is just outrageous.
But speaking of West Virginia State, they are, along with Tuskegee, two Division IIs that are in the receiving votes category.
Right.
Basically, the best of the rest, along with Harris Stowe, who dropped out of the top 5.
Okay. All right.
So those are the next men up, as they say, or the next women up in this case.
All right. So let's get to the top 5 small school women. Who do we got number 5?
But coming in at number 5, winners of, I believe, 3 in a row are the Edward Waters Lady Tigers.
Great week for the Lady Tigers.
Yes, great week. And they've gotten another victory since we've done this poll also.
That's
done this ranking.
Yep, 4
so
in a row.
That would be 4 in a row. Coming in at number 4 will be Zula Gold, Xavier Gold Nuggets, coming in with a 5-3 record, half game ahead of Edward Waters in our standings.
Is it the Rush? I think the Rush is the women.
No, the Nuggets are the women, the Rush are the men.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. At number 3, probably the most streakiest team that we have in our women's poll.
Without a doubt.
At least on the women's side, and we've got our men's streaky team also. But on the women's side, there's Florida Memorial, the Lady Lions.
Okay.
7-7. They did win their last game, so they're back on their winning ways. They'll probably pull off 2 or 3 in a row before they drop another one, based upon history.
Okay.
At number 2, coming out of nowhere, got off to a tremendous start after basically sitting out until January, but hasn't played since then. But they're still holding on to the number 2 spot. Is going to be Rust.
Right.
Rust Bears. And at number 1, the Lady Tornadoes of Talladega.
So what's beginning to be a thing, and I'm finding myself having to explain this anytime someone asks. Obviously, Rust defeated Talladega by 29 on a neutral court, right? Yes. So people have to understand this is a ranking. This is not a poll. This is not a poll. So if I were a pollster, sure, I might put Rust number 1 over Talladega because of head-to-head on a neutral site. But this is a ranking that is based on formula, wins and losses, strength of schedule, RPI, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So it'll take time to sort of play itself out. But right now, Talladega still, you're all right, still in front of Rust. And so we'll see. The next roundup, I believe they're doing in the GCAC is coming up.
Should be next weekend.
Right.
Next week.
So
and I explained this to somebody because we do try to respond to our fan emails.
Sure. Yeah, send us a tweet at my BCSN number 1.
Yeah.
Send Drew a note at BCSN Drew. Send me a note at DRB365. Whatever. Send us a note. Yeah. We'll explain.
Based on the formula,
right?
Russ would have to have a net gain as of right now of 2 games over Talladega, i.e., Russ needs to win 2, Talladega loses 1, they pass Talladega.
Right. And right now, that's the difference in the games played. I mean, Talladega has played
10 games. Russ has played
3 more games. Talladega has played 3 more games than Rust right now.
Yes. And that makes the difference in our ranking.
Right. And so
in a normal season, these 2 teams will be a lot closer because the number of games played will probably be maybe 1 different at right now.
Right. And just by comparison's sake, think about this. Florida Memorial, who's in 3rd, they played 14 games.
And a 500.
And they're in 3rd.
Yes.
So, it all works itself out. It all works itself out. Let's go over to the men's. Let's talk about the men's top 5 right now. The large school men's division, all NCAA schools. And let's start at number 5 for the men.
No, before we start at number 5.
Okay.
I've got to address this to Mike Washington. Yes, we know Prairie View has that home winning streak.
Which is at what number now? What's the number?
It's around 30. It's
Okay.
28, 29, somewhere. It's approaching 30.
Okay.
But they're only 2-4 overall, my brother. So we can't. The numbers don't play out good for Prairie View. I'm trying to say is
now you know his retort though, Drew, is going to be that Prairie View currently, as of this recording, 4-0 in the conference, 4-game winning streak, which is tied for the longest win streak right now of any SWAC team. So you know that's what he's going to come back at you with. So I'm just so you can be great.
And they're close. They're close, but they're still on the outside looking in.
They're close to what? They're close to joining the poll.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, the rankings. The rankings. See, I even messed it up. It's rankings.
They are close because we actually have 2 teams under 500 in our ranking.
Sure, right.
And those 2 teams are at number 5, North Carolina A&T, and at number 4, Hampton.
Right. And
A&T with a 6-9 record, Hampton with a 7-8 record.
Right. I don't believe A&T played last week.
Right.
And I don't believe Hampton played last week.
I thought Hampton played 1 last week.
No, they did not.
Okay.
They did not.
Number 3 would be the only undefeated team in HBCU basketball, one of, I believe, only 3 undefeated teams in the nation, Alabama A&M.
Wait a minute. Is it down to 3 now? Because I remember it being 7 about a week or 2 ago.
I think it's down to 3. Don't quote me on that.
All right.
But the pickings are getting slim. And at number 2, you have Norfolk. Shout out to
the new
number 2. Shout out to our boy Trevin Jones from Pro Sports Media Association and Urban Media Talk Sports fame. And his Norfolk State Bison, not Bison, Lord Jesus, Spartans. Norfolk State Spartans come in.
I got to get you right now. Get you right.
Come in. Oh, if that's the only mistake I've made today, which I've made many more mistakes on this day. But they're 8-6. The Spartans are 8-6.
Yeah.
And the Bears of Morgan State come in at number 1 with the 8-4 record.
And part of the reason Norfolk State is 8-6 and dropped out of first place is a pair of losses to Coppin State Saturday and Sunday.
Yes.
Almost practically the same score to Coppin. And so, yeah, Norfolk State lost those 2 games, and Morgan played 2, doggone broke.
Delaware. They played Delaware.
Well, they played a game on Monday too, where they got I think it was high 90s. They scored something like 90.
But they played a no name, if I remember correctly.
Sure, that's what
I think it was a Division III school.
Yeah,
it was a lower level school, NCAA or something like that.
Sure, right. But I was just pointing out the fact that Morgan State played 2 this past week, and then of course you mentioned that they did play Delaware State on Sunday, I think that was, and beat them by a score of. I think it was, I wrote it down, 99-83. So actually Morgan put up 99 in both games. St. Mary's was on the 21st, which was a Thursday. Yeah. Thursday, they beat St. Mary's 99-41. Then on Sunday, they beat Delaware State 99-83. And so Detorian Ware, shout out to him for having big numbers in both of those contests for Morgan State. And so, so I mean that is who Morgan State moves up to number 1, 8-4. It's going to be real tight. Now they split with Coppin, so that'll be interesting to see how it plays out, because Coppin is sitting, I believe, a game and a half in front of Morgan in the Northern Division of the MEAC, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
All right. Let's go down to the small school men, Drew. Top
5. Dropping out of the poll due to inactivity would be the Blue Devils of Dillard University.
Right.
Also coming on strong from Division II, the men's version of the West Virginia State.
Yeah.
With a 5-1 record. You know, they're coming on. They just don't have enough games under their belts right now. But
yeah, they went 2-0 last week in conference. So, like you said, they're starting to get hot.
And what's also hurting them is, for some reason, on the men's side, their conference ranking is not as good in Division II as some of our NAIA schools are comparatively to NAIA.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, because our lone Division II team in there is in probably one of the highest rated Division II conferences overall.
Okay.
Which helps them with a winning record in a strong conference.
Right.
Which helps their power ranking.
Right.
So that's it. And still hanging around, believe it or not, it's a team that hasn't played in a month and a half.
Well, you don't even mention them. I know what you don't do that because they're not. Their season's over. Their season's over.
My point is,
stop
all
it.
these other teams playing should be past them. That's the only reason I bring that up.
Well, okay.
That's why I bring that up.
Would you say if this were a top 10 poll, it'd be kind of embarrassing at this point, right? Because
it really would.
6, 7, they'd be number 8 in the top 10 poll ahead of some teams that have played games and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Correct.
All right.
But coming in at number 5, their women were number 5, and so were their men. That would be the Tigers of Edward Waters.
All right.
Number 4, their women were number 4. The men are number 4. That being the Gold Rush of Xavier University.
We gotta win that week. Rayshawn Mart dropping some serious numbers in that win for Xavier, who played that dastardly school, Carver College, who just seems to show up.
That's why, despite that 7-1 record, 2 of those wins are against Carver College, which doesn't help on your power ranking.
No, I mean, people want to bash Mississippi Valley State, but Carver College might be that's who needs to play a game. Carver and Mississippi Valley State. I want to see those 2 play and see what happens.
It's like for the number 1 draft choice game.
Exactly. Whoever loses that game
gets the extra scholarship.
Yeah, you get an extra scholarship and the number 1 draft pick in the next year's transfer pool lottery. There you go. All right, Drew. So let's get to number 3.
Number 3, the other Lincoln, the Lincoln that is still playing out of Missouri with a 7-3 record and probably playing in arguably one of the toughest conferences in Division II would be the Blue Tigers of Lincoln, Missouri.
Yeah, they lost a close game in conference. 80-80 or 82-80, lost that game, and then I think that was on the Thursday.
And the team that they played was like top 10.
Rogers, okay, yes. Yeah, Rogers, okay, and then came back on Sunday and got a 91-76 win over Northeastern State.
Yeah, Northeastern Missouri.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just wrote Northeastern State, but that's fine.
Yeah, it's Northeastern Missouri State. I mean, I know that conference. That's why I said that.
There you go. All right. I'm glad you know it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Number 2, going down and getting an impressive split.
Impressive.
In New Orleans against a top 5 Loyola of Louisiana.
Yeah.
Oh, is it Loyola New Orleans or Loyola of Louisiana?
They're in New Orleans. It's the Loyola that's in New Orleans. So
but just like Xavier is Xavier of Louisiana, technically, even though they're in New Orleans, they're known as Xavier of Louisiana.
It's Loyola.
Okay.
Keep going.
Anyway, the southernmost Loyola. But anyway, Loyola's top 5 in NAIA, and Stillman was able to go down there and get a split.
Yeah, now I haven't seen the new NAIA rankings yet, so I'm curious as to where Stillman may find themselves in the latest rankings when they do come out.
Yeah, and we did have interviews with both the men and the women's basketball coaches, Coach Teasley and Coach Dunk of Stillman. So make sure you go check that out on on the website because those podcasts are available also.
All right.
And number one for a while, and probably will be number one for a while, are the Tornadoes of Talladega. So 3 of our 5 teams, the men's team and the women's team, are in the same exact spot in the poll.
Talladega College they're running away with our basketball rankings here. Number 1 in men, number 1 in women.
Do we have a Commissioner's Cup?
Yeah, look, we might need to create one. But I got a feeling that the women maybe, look, the women, if I had to say which of the two might be in jeopardy in 2 or 3 weeks from now, I think the women's ranking may be in jeopardy in a couple of weeks. It's just a thought.
The men could probably come out of the roundup winless and still barely maintain their number 1 spot.
Right. And again,
but the women would need to come out their roundup at least 2-1.
Let's give credit to Talladega because
16,
they played
17 games.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I look at that and I'm just like, wow. I mean, now, granted, Florida Memorial, I was just kind of scanning down our list here. Florida Memorial has played 16 games. But I think between those two, nobody else, there may be one other school that's gotten more than 10. So it's
Florida Memorial women have played 14. I think on the Division I level, you've got Hampton and A&T with 15 each.
Yeah. So I mean, look, it's extraordinary. The comparison and the split between the teams who have played what's almost like a normal schedule, so to speak, thus far, and then the teams that are, because of cancellations and postponements, and they're just dealing with trying to get enough wins just to qualify for their conference tournament and then the national tournament. I mean, it's going to be interesting come February, late February, to see what happens.
And one other thing, have you noticed the disparity outside of Florida Memorial? Most of the women's teams are just now reaching 10, just getting to the early double digits in games on the women's side, and you've got men's teams who are at 15 and over, approaching 15 and over. So just the disparity in the gender.
Yes. Yeah. A couple of things I got to point out, Drew. On this past Saturday, the SWAC, for the first time all season, had except for maybe one other week where there was only 2 games, every scheduled game that was on the schedule played.
But that was short-lived.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go. Yeah, because so they played 5 games up, 5 games down. Everybody played, right? And then literally 48 hours later, I don't even think it was a full 48.
Postponed.
They were supposed to play 4 games on Monday. 2 of them got postponed. Now, that makes you, it kind of, you're like, how does that happen? Because when you look at, there's no pattern between the teams of the games that got postponed. And what I'm talking about is on Monday night, Alcorn versus Alabama A&M got postponed. I don't know if it's because of Alabama A&M. I kind of was reading the press release and it sort of implied maybe it was their protocols. But then you had Texas Southern and Mississippi Valley State, both teams who played, the previous week. And it's not like Texas Southern or Mississippi Valley State played Alcorn or Alabama A&M. You know what I'm saying? You can't even draw the parallel between why are you not playing? But literally 48 hours later.
The only thing that you could possibly figure out from this is it's been about 2 weeks since kids have come back to campus.
Okay, yeah.
So if you're going to have an outbreak, this would be the time to have one. Just based on.
I'm not rooting for an outbreak, Jesus.
Well, you understand what I'm saying, though.
Yeah, I got you.
Just based on timing, this is the time when it would happen.
Yeah, but it's a major downer when you come off of playing a full schedule finally, and then you're going into Monday. And look, Monday night's games. If you haven't seen the highlights of Alabama State's win over Southern, you missed it. I'll just say this: I watched that whole game for for various
Other reasons.
For
entertainment purposes only.
For entertainment purposes, I watched that whole game. I was a little upset the fact that Southern, who was 8.5 favorite,
you weren't entertained how you thought you were going to be.
I was not entertained the way I thought I would be. Look, Southern had a 28-21 lead at the half, and I mean, Alabama State was shooting like 17% in the first half. I mean, it was some ugly basketball. I don't know if that's great defense, but in Southern all of a sudden went cold. It was just like whatever AC was blowing just really got cranked up, and everybody went cold during the last maybe 5 minutes of the first half. So then going into the second half, you're thinking, at least I'm thinking, this might be a little lower than what it's predicted to be in the half. Then Alabama State's offense just woke up. They were hitting shots, threes left and right, bangers. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what in the world is going on here? And the last 5 minutes were really fun to watch as both teams kind of traded buckets. So props to Mo Williams and the Alabama State squad who, look, they're still trying to get their sea legs. I mean, they're still trying to figure out their identity. They didn't have a whole 5-6 preseason non-conference games to do. They just had to come out the womb cold and start playing. And so that was a good win for them. I think they ended up on Sports Center, I think even. But it was a good win. And so we'll see. We'll see what happens going forward. One
other game I want to note, Brian.
Yeah.
Florida Memorial on Saturday. I had the pleasure of broadcasting that game along with Charles Bishop.
Yeah.
And Brian, Florida Memorial's women did something I have rarely seen happen in college basketball.
Okay.
They beat Ave Maria so bad. And here's a stat for you.
Okay.
42 points for Ave Maria. 42 turnovers for Ave Maria.
Ooh, 42. Ooh, God.
They had as many turnovers as points. I don't think I have ever seen that at that level of basketball.
Damn. I mean, we've seen bad free throw shooting, which I've noted on many occasions, but I don't think I've ever seen the dreaded more turnovers or equal turnovers to points. I've never seen that before.
And that was one of many telling stats in that game, i.e. fast, I think points off of turnovers were like 64 or something ridiculous like that. Fast break points were in the 40s. I mean, it was a beating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I noted here for the women in that contest that Kiana Tolbert had a great night, or she dropped 29. And, you know what I've seen?
They had 5 in double digits on that game.
Hey, I got to give Kiana Tolbert some credit on the air right here, right now, because I noted, and it's been noticed, how poorly she was shooting at the free throw line in previous games that I think could have been won and her point production would have gone up even with better free throw shooting. These are the last 3 games. Now, granted, Florida Memorial only went 1-2 in these 3 games, but still take note, Tolbert dropped 24, 27, and 29 last week, right? She was 9 of 11 at the free throw line against St. Thomas, 5 of 6 against Kaiser, 5 of 8 against Ave Maria. I think she even had I don't know what the stretch is, but I think she has found a rhythm with her free throw shooting that if
she gets up to 70%, she's dangerous.
Well, but she was averaging 22 a game, and we kept saying she's leaving 5 to 6 points on the floor.
Yeah, because she's only shooting like 54% from the free throw line.
Exactly. So if she's making 5 more free throws a game, her average instantly is what we just noted, 24, 27, 29. That's what she's doing. And part of that is because she's making free throws. Yeah. So shout out to you, Miss Kiana Tolbert, for that. But it wasn't quite good enough to be our small school women's player of the week. Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports Network.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids' apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Your ad could be ran here. myjbn.com/support. myjbn.com/support for more information.
Drew, we're going to our BCSN National Players of the Week from January 18th through the 24th. Those games played that week. We're going to start in the large school for men. And our large school men's basketball player of the week is DeJuan Clayton of Coppin State. In 2 wins against Norfolk State, Clayton was the leading scorer in both games, averaged 21 points a game on 10 of 19 shooting from the field, 4 of 9 from behind the arc. He was 18 of 19 at the free throw line, averaged 4 rebounds a game and 7.5 assists per game, as Coppin State now is in first place in the MEAC North. Our small school men's player of the week, Quentin Drayton of Lincoln, Missouri, the Blue Tigers, and went 1-1, of course, in those 2 games. Drayton averaged 26.5 points per game. He was 20 of 37 from the field, 6 of 16 from the arc, behind the arc, 5 of 5 at the free throw line. He averaged 7 rebounds a game and 2 assists per game in those wins. So congratulations, Mr. Clayton and Mr. Drayton. All right, moving over to the women. The large school women's player of the week, Miss Anissa Rivera of North Carolina Central, mentioned that the Eagles hadn't played in a couple of weeks. So she helped them split a pair of games with Norfolk State over the weekend. She averaged 17.5 points a game and 10 rebounds per game, also averaged 2.5 assists and 2.5 blocks per game. So congratulations to Anissa. And then our small school women's player of the week, LaQuanza Glover of Edward Waters. And she had an interesting week. She helped the Tigers go 3-0, the Lady Tigers go 3-0. She averaged 26.7 points per game. She was 32 of 54 from the field, 16 of 23 at the free throw line. She shot no threes, Drew, that entire week. No 3-pointers were shot.
No attempts or no makes?
No attempts.
Okay.
None. Doesn't need it. You know, when she put up that kind of
old-fashioned way.
Old-fashioned way. She averaged 15.3 rebounds per game and 4 assists per game in the week. She did 2 things very, very big for her. She first off set her career high in points. At first, it was in 29 points, which she did on a night when she hit a double-double, a 20-20 double-double with 29 points and 20 rebounds at the start of the week against Florida College. That then was a career high in points. Then she came at the end of the week and dropped 31 against Allen University for a new career high. So LaQuanza Glover, I think this might be the second time Ms. Glover has won this award. I know she was one of our preseason players to watch on our first team. She was
preseason, first team preseason. And I believe she won either the first or the second week that Florida Memorial, Edward Waters actually started their season. I think the week they started the season, she won it.
Yeah, definitely. So congratulations.
It would have been mid-December.
Congratulations to Miss Rivera and Miss Glover on the win, and congratulations to those teams. If I could real quick, Drew, before we get ready to get to the close, I wanted to make a mention. We also had a men's triple-double. We mentioned the 2020. Actually, it should be noted, the 2020 by Laquanza, it's the second women's double 2020 of the year and the third 2020 in HBCU basketball. So I don't know who's I'm trying to find, the NCAA, everyone keeps track of double doubles and triple doubles. I'm trying to find somebody that's keeping track of 2020 double doubles. So if you find that, let me know.
Yeah, all right.
I haven't found it yet. But wanted to give a shout out to the men and the men's side. Got to give a shout out to Cameron Potts of Lincoln, Missouri, who dropped a triple double for Lincoln when they won their game against Northeastern Missouri State. He had 15 points, 12 rebounds, and 10 assists on that particular night. So props to him. And I think I'm trying to just quickly glance. Is there anybody else's performance? I know we mentioned Kiana Tolbert. There's a couple other people that had some good performances during the course of the week, but I just thought it would be worth mentioning those individual people. So, definitely want to make sure we shout them out and thank, we keep up, man. We got to keep this thing rolling. So, where do we go from here, Drew? What else do we have on the plate as it relates to HBCU basketball? Anything?
I think we about covered it.
Okay. I know we will get into later in our next show. We'll probably talk a little bit about the MEAC football because they have their media day coming up this week. That's one thing, maybe real quick, a quick little news and notes thing. North Carolina Central opted out of playing spring football, which now makes the MEAC list of teams 6 teams.
Yeah, that's something they should get used to. Ooh, I didn't mean to say that out loud. I'm sorry.
And nice shot. And so basically in the spring, everybody's going to play each other 5 games.
And you know what's ironic? Except for A&T and Central being flip-flop, this is the new MEAC.
Well, you got A&T in it. Is that necessarily the new MEAC?
I said if Central and A&T were flip-flop, this would be the new MEAC.
Right. And they're still going to play this MEAC championship game as well. So it'll be interesting. I guess that'll come with whoever the top 2 teams are will get a chance to play for an automatic bid to the FCS playoffs.
Brian, what is it going to look like if you got 2 teams at 3-2 playing for the championship?
It's going to look like 2 teams playing with 3-2 record. That's
or even worse, a 3-2 and 2 and 3 teams trying to figure out who gets the tiebreak.
I was going to say, is there any way you can have 3 teams at 3-2? That's what I really want to see.
Yeah, because somebody could be over for the season.
There you go. So see, now that's what you really want to say. Okay, what's it going to look like then? Because whoever somehow,
and the MEAC has been known for crazy ties and tiebreakers. Yes.
Yeah. Interesting.
A 5-team. What was it? 5 teams 1 year split the title. 4 teams.
Yeah. Everybody got a ring that year. It was like, hey,
you get a ring, and you get a ring, and you get a ring.
Right. All right. So look, I know we're about to wrap up, but I've got a rant for just a quick minute, if you would. The press coverage of Duke's coach Mike Krzyzewski the past weekend has been, in my opinion, absolutely ridiculous. I have seen comments saying, and this all comes from Coach K's response to a question from a student reporter at Duke following his team's loss on Saturday. And I'm going to play the audio, but if you've seen the video, this is far from arrogant as I've seen it. I've heard it tense, terse. What did I already say? Arrogant? Whatever negative adjective you could, angry. I'm like, what you're going to hear? I'm speaking as
honest.
As an educator, as a teacher, as a coach, I found nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with how Coach K handled this. He wasn't disrespectful. He wasn't rude. He wasn't arrogant. We've seen those in press conferences, have we not, Drew? We can go to many examples. I can go to many examples. Yeah, I mean, we can go,
Greg Popovich.
This is mild compared. I mean, this is what you want compared to those guys and what we've seen them do. But again, take a listen if you haven't heard it. And here it is.
Hi, Coach. I'm just curious as to what the next step forward here is for the team as you guys move into another week of basketball.
Yeah, why don't we just evaluate this game? Yeah, I'm not into what our next step forward is right now. We just finished the hard-fought game. Yeah, I don't know if, what's your major?
Okay, I'm going to stop right there because this is where Coach K goes into trying to relate to the young man. He's not talking to, Joe Reporter from SI or the Durham Herald or where. He's talking to a student who is a student reporter
at a student newspaper.
Now, if the conversation had stopped right there, Drew, did he answer the question?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. He answered the question. Now, here's where Coach K, and he gets killed for this, tries to relate to the student as any educator or teacher might do.
What's your major at Duke? What's your hardest class?
Econ.
Okay. So say you just had the toughest econ test in the world. And when you walked out, somebody asked you, what's your next step? You see what I mean? You have some empathy and yeah. Okay.
That's apparently what he's getting killed for. Apparently asking for some empathy. Is that so wrong when you're trying to, aren't you in the business of educating? I mean, people don't think that because he makes millions of dollars and he's at a school like Duke, like he can't be an educator. He can't be a teacher.
He's at a university, at a research university. That's what he's supposed to do.
Yeah. I mean, if this were the guy from SI, he wouldn't have gone down this route, but he's not talking to a guy from SI or ESPN. He's talking to a student at his school's newspaper.
Just give us time to evaluate this game, and then we'll figure out, just like we always try to do, what the next step will be. The next step, obviously, is to prepare for Georgia Tech. How we prepare for them, that's what we're going to have to figure out.
Okay. End of question. What was wrong? You got to be kidding me. I watched a guy. I'm telling you, the hate, and you know what? I think this all stems from Coach
Duke
K.
Bias.
Yeah, Duke bias 1. 2, Coach K is one of the people who've questioned about whether we should be playing or not. So I think that sort of triggered people. And then now people want to say, because his team is 500, he's not having a great season, blah, blah, blah. People say, oh, well, that's why Coach wants out and why he's asking these questions. And look, I've jokingly kind of wondered it too, but that's all jokes. This did not deserve the vile. Man, this is like kicking dirt on a grave. I mean, really, this is what y'all got to be upset about from Coach K. I mean, I've seen Dabo Swinney say more ridiculous things in press conferences, and it didn't get nearly the kind of blowback that Coach K has gotten for just trying to relate the question that the student was asking to the player. And really for any media person, if you take out the whole part about trying to relate to the kid, and he had just left it as that question, he answered the question. He answered it without any kind of nastiness tone. I mean, if you look at the video, I mean, he's not smiling, but he's not like frowning. He didn't turn red. He wasn't agitated or pissed off, but somehow that's what comes across. And I'm blown away by it. I've never been a Duke defender. I've never been a Coach K defender. I've never been a Duke fan, but I became a Coach K backer and a Dookie in the last 48 hours at the reaction that he has received on this. And it really bothers me that we are at that point in culture that we can't let adults, we can't let teachers, we can't let coaches coach and teach and direct. Again, he was not talking to an adult. He was talking to a student, an 18 to 22-year-old. Big difference, in my opinion. And he wasn't talking to, it wasn't like he was talking to a woman. He wasn't, if that had been a woman, they would have said, oh, Coach K, you were talking down to her. How dare you? Unbelievable, Drew. That's my final thought. Do you care to comment at all?
Let's get out of here. Drop the mic.
Drew's ready to go. All right. That's going to do it for this episode of the Sports Wrap. I want to remind you, make sure you're listening to our podcast, or more importantly, download, like, subscribe to our podcast wherever you hear it, wherever you're listening to, Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio Podcast, Anchor Podcast as well. Make sure you're following us on YouTube, MyJBN Online. Go download the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Just go to the Google or Apple Play Store, search MyJBN or MyBCSN. You will get an alert anytime, every time there is a show or podcast drop for our show, or Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, which airs every Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Central. That's 7 Eastern. And you will get an alert notice about that show. And you'll also, you can check out some of the other shows from the Jericho Broadcast Network family as well. So again, that's MyJBN or MyBCSN on the app. And of course, hopefully you're following us and sharing our site. Share our product, please. MyBCSN1, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and then the website is mybcsn.net. All right, Drew, good show, good quick show. And we are going to sign off now. Follow Drew on Twitter at BCSNDrew. Find me at DRB365 for AD Drew. I'm Brian Fulfer. I hope you appreciated this episode of the BCSN Sports Wrap, wherever you listened to it and watched it. Thank you, support, and we are out.
Holla.
But yo, my beats, they are hard.